Hey everyone, it's Tox from CritsHappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. Today we've got a critical review of a game that I think is called Fantastiqa. It might be Fantastiqa, but for now I'll call it Fantastiqa. It's a 2 to 4 player deck building game. It takes about an hour to play and is recommended for ages 8 and up. Now, I know what you're saying, it's another deck building game. Well, this is going to flip a lot of things on its head. This is a very whimsical game. You'll notice when we get into the gameplay and we start talking about the rules and how everything works, that the artwork and the cards and the story is all very, very whimsical. This is not your father's deck building game. As you can see laid out in front of me, there is boards, there are tokens, there are locations, there's going to be questing involved. It is not draw the best cards and deal the most damage, power, energy, whatever you want to use, and try and win the game. This is a thinking deck building game, and it's one that completely blows apart the genre in my opinion. But is it fun? Is it a good game? We'll hope to answer those questions for you. For now, grab your spatula, grab your shovel, grab your pail, and grab a cat, and let's delve into the world of Fantastiqa. So Fantastiqa is a pretty in-depth game. I cannot go into the complete playthrough on this without taking up way more than everybody's time. But in essence, it is a game designed to win by getting quest points. You are not trying to get the most victory points in your deck. You're trying to complete quests. And you're going to do that by matching symbols. But in addition to complete a quest, you have to be in a specific location. As you can see before me, the board looks really complex, but it's actually quite simple. You have 6 different locations, all connected by roads. And each road is going to have a monster that, in order for you to travel to it, you must subdue it. Subduing is the same as acquiring. In this case, if I wanted to move from the highlands to the hills, I would have to play a card from my hand with a symbol of the tooth, which is what subdues the spider. If I can do that, I get any gems on the monster card, and that monster card goes into my discard pile. From that point on, the only things I have to worry about are in the upper left. And in this case, the spider will provide me a web. And different quests are going to require different things. For example, this quest, which gets completed in the Frozen Wastelands, says play croquet with the evil-tempered walruses of Wygar. To complete it, I need 2 bats. Now you'll notice there's also these cups here, and then there's rewards at the top of them. Each quest is going to give you different types of rewards. In this case, if we completed this and were able to play 2 bats from our hand while in the Frozen Wastelands, we would get 3 gems plus a cup. Gems are going to be used to acquire even more powerful cards, which I'll explain in a second. But in addition to the cup, because this is one of the 2 common quests that are out in the public area, I get an additional bonus. And the amount of victory points from a cup standpoint needed to win are different game by game, and different by the amount of players. You can choose to play short, medium, or long games with 2, 3, or 4 players. So obviously, the more points you need, the longer the game is going to be. But it really allows you a lot of flexibility. And on top of that, each of these locations can move and you can shift them around. So if I wanted to start the next game with the hills in the center and the highlands off on the left, you can do that. In addition, you can choose randomly where you're going to put these giant meeple statues. And each of those statues correspond to specific decks. Fantastiqa is not your father's deck builder. It's not a game where you're just getting cards that are out here and jumping from area to area and getting these cards. You're going to be acquiring these gems, and you're going to use those gems to get artifacts and beasts from more powerful decks where you can just directly buy them from what's the top 3 cards on that deck. Now, in addition to the 2 common quests, there is a quest chest that you can go to and visit these cups and get more quests as well. So you can have both personal quests and you can have common quests. But again, the goal is to get to a certain point threshold to win the game. It's very challenging, but yet very simple. On your turn, you can do 3 things. You can either go adventuring, which lets you move from place to place. However, to go adventuring, you either need to subdue the creatures by playing the right symbols from your hand and acquiring them into your discard pile, or by using abilities on cards or tokens that you have to use a flying carpet. A flying carpet will allow you to move from location to location without subduing the monster in between. Now, there are tokens that you can get which will give you flying carpets, which every person is going to start the game with 3 of these. Once they're gone, they're gone. But in addition, there are cards that you'll acquire, like the Witch. If the Witch is played from your hand, she will give you a broom resource. Or instead of the broom, you could use her ability, which is in this circle, and that will give you the flying carpet. So there's going to be advantages to gaining certain cards. Some you're going to want for their abilities, some you're going to want for their resources. And it depends on what you're trying to do throughout the game to either hinder your opponent or help yourself as to which ones you're going to want to choose. The other thing that's really nice from a token perspective is you have this token, which you'll get 3 of in the game as well. This shows you a discard, which is the tent symbol, or a discard pile, which is the tent symbol, and your rucksack, which is the deck symbol. These allow you, throughout the game, you'll have 3 of them, to be able to discard them and immediately shuffle everything in your discard pile into your deck, which is really nice because there's a lot of times in these deck building games where you get a card that you really want or it's very powerful and it goes into your discard pile and you have to wait for it to cycle through. And with those, you can just automatically go ahead and boom, shuffle it right back in, which is really, really nice. So aside from the adventuring and subduing your creatures or using your tokens and your cards' powers to move you around the board, you can visit a statue as another action. Now you only get 1 action per turn naturally. Visiting a statue means wherever you are, the statue that is on that location, you can then perform its action. If you're on the quest cups, you draw 3 cards from the quest deck. You then can keep 1, 2, or 3, but you must keep 1. Now, the more quests you have, you may think the better it is. The downside to it is that the cups that are listed at the top are not always beneficial to you. And what I mean by that is this. Let's say I had these 3 cups or these 3 quests as my private quests in front of me. Well, completing them all would provide me 4, 8, 10 points, which if I'm playing to 8, let's say, would be great. The problem is these count as negative points if you haven't completed them. So technically right now I'm at negative 10. Once I complete this, while I have 4 points, if these are still in my private stock, I'm actually at negative 2 points because I have 4 positive and negative 6. So just having more quests doesn't always equal a better chance to win the game. It's really a matter of maximizing and making your deck as efficient as possible and going after the quests you know you can complete without overextending yourself. In addition, there are 2 black artifact towers which will get you artifacts. Artifacts are anywhere from 2 to 3 to potentially 4 gems to buy, and these are all text-driven cards, like for example Bitter Brew. It says choose 1 card from your hand or discard pile and place it in any opponent's discard pile. So if you have anything that's not helpful to you, you can give it to an opponent and maybe hinder them. But again, you're going to acquire gems by adventuring around. You'll notice some of these monsters have gems on them. When you acquire them or you subdue them, you get those gems into your stock. In addition, completing the quests, for example, this one will give you 3, this one will give you 2 gems in addition to the points. So you're going to be acquiring those gems and using them to buy artifacts, but then in addition you could buy beasts from the Beast Bazaar, which are the orange griffins. The beasts all cost 3 and are generally very, very powerful cards. While most cards will only provide you 1 resource, these may provide you 2 resources. And having multiple resources is really valuable because when you go adventuring, while you normally want to play a 2th resource from your hand to subdue something like the spiders, you do have the option when subduing of playing 2 of the same type and using that as a wild card. So for example, the griffin here provides 2 swords, which if I wanted to, I could use it as 2 swords, or I could use it as a wild to subdue something that is a symbol that I don't have in my hand. And then finally there's a 3rd action, which is complete a quest. To complete a quest, you have to be in the location it says. So this common quest tells us the frozen wastelands is where we need to be. So we would need to be on the frozen wastelands. We would need to have 2 bat symbols in this case to complete that quest. And one of the interesting things about completing quests is, while you may think you just need to have those 2 bat symbols in your hand, you're going to have another token that we haven't showed you yet, which is this 5 little cup token. This token will allow you to put cards from your hand under it per turn and lock them for a quest. Now there's a lot of interesting strategies with this. The 5 means you can only have 5 cards maximum underneath this. But it lets you do one of 2 things. Let's say I have a limited number of bats in my deck, but I know I want to complete that quest. I could take one of the cards that provides a bat resource, put it under that token and lock it in my play area, and then later when I get my second bat in my hand, use that to complete the quest from the bat in my hand and the bat under the token that was locked. Now, as you're thinking, I'm sure some of you who are devious-minded, like some of us may be here, you can also lock cards that don't have anything to do with a quest. So one of your starting cards is a card called a Peaceful Dragon, which does absolutely nothing than take up space in your deck. And throughout the course of the game, there's going to be abilities that some of the cards will do, like the fairies, which will give an opponent a Peaceful Dragon, that are going to just fill up your deck with Peaceful Dragons. Well, if you want to, you can take those Peaceful Dragons and lock them under that Quest Cup token. Now, you're not going to be able to use them, obviously, to complete quests, but it will get them out of your deck. Not permanently, mind you, because they're going to come back when you complete quests and you take cards out from underneath those locked tokens. But it does give you an option to lock things that may be hindering your deck and give you another option to just maximize the efficiency of your deck. And that's really the beauty of Fantastiqa. There's so many different strategies to employ. You could want to adventure and get a lot of monsters to just fill up with a lot of different resources, but then you're going to have to manage when you lock them and when you use them to complete quests. You may end up with so many resources it almost becomes unmanageable. You may want to go after the monsters that are going to provide you additional abilities. So again, like the witch gives you the option of getting the resources or giving the ability to use a magic carpet. There's going to be other creatures that will give you the ability to give people the Peaceful Dragons, like the fairies do. There's going to be some that will allow you to draw additional cards, and there's going to be some that will allow you to visit the totems in addition to your normal action to give you more opportunities to do things on your turn. There's going to be some that will give you gems, just a multitude of different options. So you're going to have to face choices around what do I want to do to add to my deck. But overall, the game has a massive amount of replayability, a massive amount of complexity, which I know looking at this may seem overwhelming, but after a few games and forgetting what you think you know about deck building games will actually become very familiar and become very, very fast. So as big of a small, of a huge, of a little nutshell as I can think of, that is Fantastiqa. Essentially, you're going to be moving around the board, you're going to be acquiring cards from the center out here, and of course when these are gone you're going to refill them for the next player. You're going to use those cards to either lock them or complete quests with them as you get them in your hand, and you're going to use the rewards for gems to buy beasts and artifacts that are going to improve upon your deck. Now, one thing we didn't tell you is the creatures that are in the game will progressively get better. One of the unique things is this is not a game where you just shuffle all the monsters that you could acquire and then place them out. This creature deck gets built differently depending on the number of players in the game, and then gets stacked in rank order based on a setup card that comes with the game. That was something that was really nice, because there was never really a case where some really major card came out in the beginning, somebody got that and was able to run away with the game. It really made it very balanced for all players at the very beginning of the game. But again, the whole object, get to a certain threshold of quest cups, You're going to complete quests by using the cards in your hand that match up to the symbols and making sure you're in the right location. And you're going to get those symbols by subduing creatures as you travel from location to location. So as you can imagine, there's quite a bit to not just hand management and deck management, but player placement and when and how to move around. One of the other things we didn't even talk about is the ability to teleport using these statues. Aside from going to the statues and being able to draw cards from the respective deck, you do have two options at the statues that we didn't speak to. The first is you could teleport from one statue to a like statue. So if I was over here in the Highlands and I wanted to visit this statue, I could, if I spent the right number of resources, teleport over to the wetlands on the other side of the board. And again, because those statues can be put in different places, the game is always going to offer you different options around when that's going to happen. And then finally, you can also release cards. And releasing cards allows you to basically take cards out of your deck at the cost of gems, almost like banishing or deleting or destroying cards from your deck. The one trick to that is you cannot do that with Peaceful Dragons. So those little cute guys are going to stick with you, offer you lots of cups of tea, and hold your spatulas for you along the way. As you can tell, very whimsical and a lot to it. But what do we think about Fantastiqa? Let's back up and we'll give you our final thoughts. So that's Fantastiqa. Let's start by the components. The components are phenomenal. In my opinion, this is one of the best produced games in terms of components I've ever seen. The Jeeples, as I call them, because they're giant meeples, are amazingly cool. Very solid, great looking meeples. They are obvious when you look at the board what they are, where they are. They don't get lost. They don't get mixed in with other meeples. These things are phenomenal. The discs that are used are really good. They're very hard. They don't bend. You don't have any issues with those whatsoever. The tokens are made of really thick cardboard. Really, really well done. These don't bend at all. Don't take any damage from normal wear and tear. But more importantly, the cards. Do you hear that? I don't know if you can or not, but the cards have kind of a texture to them. Almost like a old papyrus type feel to them. And it's phenomenal. It fits the genre so well. It is just really, really good. And then finally, there is this really quirky, dorky thing. Each player board, as we mentioned in gameplay, has a rucksack and a tent to show you where your deck is and where your discard pile is. What we didn't show you is that you can flip them over. And on the opposite sides, it takes the rucksack and the tent and flips them. So whether you're left-handed or right-handed, you can flip that out in front of you and lay it either way. I know that sounds really stupid, and I know not many of you are left-handed. I'm not personally, but I just think that's cool and it fits with the entire whimsical type theme of Fantastiqa. So from a component standpoint, I really do not know of many games that have been put together better than this. And on top of that, as we showed you in our unboxing video, the box itself has a tremendous insert to keep track of all of this. So from component-wise, it's like an A++, just really, really well done. Now, from a gameplay perspective, the first couple of gameplays of Fantastiqa are really awkward. There's just no other way to describe it. You're going into this with a predetermined notion about what deck building is and how you play and what you should do, and you can't do that with this game. It completely throws that on its edge. First off, there's so many different resources in the game to deal with that will help you or hinder you along the objective of completing the quests, that you really have to manage what you do as actions on your turn, how you build your deck, and learn when to adjust your deck. There are a lot of times during gameplay where you will start off playing and focusing on 2 or 3 different resources to achieve a quest, and then once you've achieved that quest, the only other quests that are available either as open common quests or as part of your quest that you could draw are really going to take you towards other resources. So you have to know when to start to get rid of things from your deck, and it turns it into a totally different experience. Whereas with traditional deck builders, it's pretty obvious which cards you want to get out of your deck to begin with because you're going to want to get rid of some of those starting cards. This really makes you adjust on the fly, which is one of the things that I really enjoyed about the game. You could start with one strategy, and by 2 quests in, you're immediately shifting to another strategy. And it made it very flexible and very fun. Now, engagement-wise, there was not a lot of engagement back and forth between players, other than the race to complete quests. You can tell by what people are taking and what they're adventuring and subduing of what they're trying to do and complete for quests, at least with the open common quests. And it's obvious there's games that you can play where you do not complete a single common quest and you just complete the quest that you draw from the quest deck, and doing that is going to give you a little bit of an advantage over your opponents, meaning that if there's a common quest out that requires, let's say, 3 webs to complete, and people start seeing me go after cards to subdue that will provide me with webs in the future, that's going to be an obvious trigger to them that that's what I'm going after. So they may then want to race me or have the ability to get that quest done ahead of me, making those resources maybe not as valuable in my deck. So from an engagement standpoint, that's really where the engagement kind of tops out between each other. There really is no competitive or combat, between players. But you can do quite a bit in terms of strategies of taking cards that you think other people will be adventuring towards, or moving and acquiring things from the totems in different areas to just better your deck ahead of other people. Overall, there's a lot of strategies involved, and I really, really like that. You could play this game 20 times, which we have, and not have any feel of you're playing the same game or the same deck, because there's so many different variables. And that's probably the most exciting piece to me about this game from a gameplay experience, is that there is so much replayability in the game because you can change your strategies so much throughout a single game that it really offers you tons and tons of options, which makes for a great experience. While most of the time I really grade experience on the overall experience of the players, a lot of people have complained about previous deck builders in the past being very one kind of dimensional or solitaire-like. There are times where you can feel like that in this game because you are reacting to what's on the board and adventuring to take what you think is the best on the board, or trying to get things to get gems to then dig into the beast deck or things like that. But it is a very good experience. There is a lot happening in the game, so players are always engaged, players are always paying attention to what's going on, and they're really having to see, where is this person going to move, so then I can know where I'm going to move, what are they using, and then on top of that, when do you use your tokens versus when do you use the abilities from the cards, really makes for an engaging experience. This game pulled everybody in. When we played, whether we were playing with younger players or older players, it just sucked everyone in, had them glued to their seats in terms of what creatures they were going to subdue, when they were going to dig into the totem decks to get the right cards they needed, how they were going to maximize their cards. I mean, it really got people thinking. And at the end of the day, that was the first thing that came to my mind and the last thing that came to my mind when I thought about how do I rate Fantastiqa. It is a thinking man's deck building game, and I absolutely loved that. It was such a refreshing, different experience for playing a deck building game that I tend to almost not want to call it a deck building game. It is, in the sense that you start with a small set of cards and you make them more efficient, but it is by no means a straight path. Just like you would think in this type of world in Fantastiqa, you're going to have to take different paths. You're going to have to jump from one avenue to another to really maximize your efficiency. There is a little bit of luck, there is a lot of strategy, and it overall made for an absolutely amazing, wonderful experience. So at the end of the day, Fantastiqa gets a crit rating from Crits Happen. It is one of the most enjoyable, one of the most exciting, one of the most original and unique deck building games I have ever had the opportunity to play. We definitely would like to thank Griffin Games and Alf Siegert, the gentleman who designed the game, actually provided us this copy for us to review for you. It has been an absolute blast to play this game, and I would highly recommend this game for anyone who is both an experienced deck building fan or someone who is brand new to the genre. I can see this from both angles. If you're experienced, you're going to absolutely love all of the elements that this game brings to the table. If you've never played a deck building game before, you're going to come in without any bad habits and you're going to experience an extremely enveloping, fun, unique game. So overall, I cannot say enough good things about Fantastiqa. Even though I know it came out last year, it's been the most fun game that I've played this year so far. I know we're not too far into 2013, but this has been an absolute joy to play. At the end of the day, it's a crit rating from Crits Happen for Fantastiqa. Thank you so much for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed this critical review. If you've got any questions or any comments, definitely feel free to leave them here on the YouTube channel. Of course, you can always find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Google Plus by searching critshappen.com. And of course, you can find us at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, thank you so much for watching. We hope that you enjoy your fun time inside of Fantastiqa with your pail, your cat, your spatula, and all of the friendly fire-breathing dragons. Thanks so much for watching. Keep rolling those dice, and we hope they're all crits.